Facebook. It's still morning here in Costa Rica, 11:30 probably. Welcome to the Rhythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. We are a life advancement center that uses ayahuasca as one of the modalities to bring about this tremendous change. And I mean a tremendous change. And we incorporate plant medicine, metaphysical teachings, yoga, meditation, breath work, amazing food, the cleanse, medical supervision, shamanism, all into this 1 week where amazing stuff happens. How amazing? Well, there's been over 14,000 people through the doors, and 97.03% of them, that's 970 out of 1,000, report a life-changing miracle during their stay. A life-changing miracle during their stay. At the 6-month mark, 90.28 say that this was the week that changed their life. 90 out of every 100 people. It's an amazing week. Because of that, we get like celebrities and personal development gurus and business leaders from all over the world that come here. And then we get ordinary people like you and me that come here and have this amazing experience. This past week, we had Tony Coe, who's number 81 on the richest self-made women in the world here. And we had Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup of the Soul. We had and then an amazing group of hedge fund runners and all kinds of people, just amazing people that have this incredible experience, which we call a soul merger. And in other cultures, it was actually called a soul reclamation, but we call it a soul merger. And all of these modalities assist in bringing about this to occur. The good thing is, once this happens, it's yours forever. This week at Rhythmia is a life-changing week. It starts out one way and then it goes another way. And when you leave, you never really get back, because the overwhelming vast majority of people who go through this decide either during or directly after their merger that they want to become a beneficial presence on the planet. And this decision to become a beneficial presence on the planet is a life changer, because it affects our experience of the world, of the world. And last week I said it takes us out of receiving into giving. So a lot of times, we're brought up to expect to be entitled and to receive. Why? Because when we're born, we're too young to feed ourselves. We're too young to fend for ourselves, and we get in the habit of receiving. We receive our mother's breast or a milk bottle. We receive food coming in on a tray. We're in the habit of, we receive an education we didn't work for or earn. We receive all of these things. We're in the habit of receiving. Now, that sets us up for failure, because our whole life we're looking then for the next breast, the next free milk, the next free education, the next. And then if our expectations aren't met, oh my God, now we have a big problem, because what we were entitled to didn't show up. So now we have a big problem. And then that shows up as missed expectations, unhappiness, depression, anxiety, blah, 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 blah. Once that flips from receiving to giving, everything changes. And I mean everything changes. And once the precursor to that is saying, I want to be a beneficial presence. So people talk about, what does that mean? It's one of Michael Beckwith's favorite terms, and I love Michael Beckwith. And what all that it means is that I'm going to leave this table in better shape when I leave than when I sat down. I was a beneficial presence to the table and the people who look at the table. If I do that in my church, in my community life, in my family, in my relationship, in my business, if my business does that in its environment, then I am becoming a beneficial presence in all of, and I hate to use this word because it's so overused in the spiritual community, but all of the juice of my existence is garnered from this commission to be and commitment to be a beneficial presence on the planet. All the richness of that relationship, or to be a beneficial presence in my family, to be a beneficial presence in my community, to be a beneficial presence in my church, to be a beneficial presence in my neighborhood, on my street, in my company, for my company to the world. Whatever that is all the juice you're ever going to get is from it. How do I know that? Well, I know it from my own experience, and I'm turning 60 this year, that every great thing that's ever happened to me has been in the act of giving. I know it from reading studies. And one of the studies that is most interesting to me is the lottery winner study. And you know how many times I still buy lottery tickets? I still do. But how many times do we pray that something happens and we win this lottery? And then if you watch what happens to the winners, it's amazing. The overwhelming vast majority file for bankruptcy within 8 years of their winning the lottery. They say that it wrecked their house, it wrecked their marriage, it wrecked their family. So what is that? The act of getting the greatest gift that one could imagine in the form of a monetary equivalent happens to these people, and it screws their whole life up. So think of that on a smaller scale, that maybe you didn't win the lottery, but maybe you had some things given to you, and rich kids. Have you ever known a kid that was given an enormous inheritance or a trust fund, and you look at their happiness level and you see the truth of that? It doesn't take you long to figure this out. Now, does that mean that I'm against money? Not at all. 93 or 94% of the millionaires and multimillionaires in the United States received 90% received nothing in the form of an inheritance, and the few percent that I'm talking about to get to 93 received very little. It's only about 7% of the multimillionaires that receive some sizable things. So most people are earning it for the first time. And that in itself is an act of giving. If you've ever had the opportunity to create wealth, it's not an inbound, it's an outbound event. You have to add a ton of value to a thing in order to get a capital event of any size. So I want to talk a little bit today about this. And before I leave Rhythmia, I just want to say I'm the author of 2 small books, Truthonomics, which is a manifestation system that's worked for me forever, and Stuff the Moon Said, which is a little bit about my journey into plant medicine and why we created the Rhythmia Life Advancement Center in the first place. I want to talk about today the road less taken, number 2, which is about this, and distractions by pop stuff. So all of us are victims of pop culture. I used to live in Malibu, and I moved from Malibu to, I have 2 houses now. I have a house here in Costa Rica and one in the Turks and Caicos. And I lead a pretty sheltered life here, thankfully, in Costa Rica. But I still have the internet, and I still watch TV, and I still have Hulu, and that brings me world news, and I still see these things. And I want to talk about the changes in popular culture, popular opinions, and popular thoughts, and how that can negatively affect your aspiration and your desire to become a beneficial presence. See, once we decide to become a beneficial presence, we know that that's about a 10-year trip from when we decide to do it to when we actually manifest the completion of that. And we know that that trip is very hard. We know that it's going to be harder than anything we've ever done. And we trade that in exchange for becoming a beneficial presence and helping people. And in the end, we will get a monetary equivalent, which is the vibration of money that comes with it. And along the way, it becomes the funnest thing we've ever done in our life. But it's a 10-year trajectory. We know that. Now, a lot of things are in popular culture that tells us not to do those things, right? To not become a beneficial presence because, and I'm not going to get conspiracy theorists on you, but just by nature in itself, a small percentage of us will actually hear that call and make the decision to become that. Fortunately for me, a lot of the people that watch these kinds of broadcasts are those people, right? And a lot of people that come to a place like this are those people. But there will be many things to try to distract us and dissuade us from being on this path of becoming a beneficial presence. So what are those things? Well, just turn on the TV. We can waste a ton of time watching reality TV shows and getting our data inputs from sources that don't vibrate that high. We can easily get on the thing of constant negative news of everything is wrong, and because everything is wrong, I can't survive, or because everything is unfair, I can't excel, or because everything is not as perfect as it should be, I should stay home. Now, I'm going to tell you to take the opposite approach to that. What do I mean by that? Well, if we're teaching our children and grandchildren to be entitled, then not being entitled gives you a huge competitive advantage. If we're teaching people to not work hard, then working hard, if it's your thing, gives you a huge competitive advantage. So, there was a time when there was a term called being gung-ho, like being really involved in trying to do things for the betterment, right? Those times are gone. And now because of that, there's a huge opportunity. If I had a grandchild, which I hope to soon, and I can tell him what the greatest thing is, it would be to have grit, stay positive, and go against the grain. Go against the grain. If they're telling you that you should have a free education, you shouldn't try in business, you should be protective of everything and not risk everything, I'd say, hey, look it. Quit school, risk everything, and fail a multitude of times until you win. I mean, that's one theory, right? What I'm really trying to say is don't let pop culture rob you of your dream. Don't let everything is wrong rob you from trying, because the one thing that we know from the studies that are out there, those who fail the most succeed the most. Those who fail the most succeed the most. So what does that tell you? I would say that idea that you have, try it. And not only try it, commit to it for 10 years, right? Because we found that most successes are averted because the people gave up right before the time when they would become successful. And then those people are constantly in startup mode. And being in startup mode is kind of like being in hell forever. When you're in startup mode, the hardest time in any endeavor is the first 3 years. It is the hardest time. That's when most of the failures occur. So if you go in at 3 years and then switch to something else and you're in it for another 3 years and another 3 years, had you had stuck with the first thing at the 10-year mark, you would be experiencing super success. Super success. So don't let pop culture sell you out of something, and don't try to time markets. And I'm going to tell you, what do I mean by that? Well, you know, from time to time, things trend and they trend very hard. If you ever try to time trends with your business or your endeavor, you're going to lose. By the time you get mastery, that trend will be gone. There's a whole study out there that shows the time to start something is when it's trending the lowest, so that by the time that you get mastery over it, it's trending up again. What I say is don't care about trends. Don't care about what's happening, because if you're in it long enough, you'll hit a great trend and a bad trend, right? So it doesn't matter. What matters is that you gain mastery over that which what you're doing, and that you don't get talked out of it. There are tons of well-meaning parents, well-meaning aunts and uncles, well-meaning neighbors that will talk you out of your dream. And your dream better be solid. It better be from a merged place, because if it's not, you're going to quit. But there'll be a million people who are well-intended. Now, what do we mean by that? So let's think about it. The 1%, the inverse of the 1% is 99%. The hyper successful are 0.2%, which means 2 out of 1,000. So that means 998 of those 1,000 people have not had hyper success. So what are those? And forget about it. Out of 1,000 people, 900 haven't had any success. So what are those people going to tell you? They're going to tell you that it's too hard. You don't have core abilities to do this. The timing's not right. Banks are shutting down. A depression is coming. A recession is near. They're going to say all that stuff. And what I'm going to tell you is don't let that affect you. Don't let the news affect you. Don't let what's happening in pop culture affect you. Don't let anything, because you're going to be your happiest. And I want to talk about happiness. So your happiest from a merged soul perspective is your most fulfilled, not an adrenaline rush, or you're going to be your most fulfilled when you're chasing this dream or this vision of becoming a beneficial presence on the planet. Now, how can that be? It can be because it is. It is when we surrender everything to that thing and something becomes much bigger than us. All of a sudden, in that transition from us being the most important thing to being a very unimportant thing, supporting something that's super, super, super important, we experience joy, contentment, and fulfillment. So long-term joy is the result of being content and fulfilled for a prolonged period of time. That is what this brings. This is not orgasmic, or, you know, I hear people, and I'm lucky that I work at a place where I see bliss in action a lot. So bliss is a temporary thing, and there's a lot of bliss involved at the end of plant medicine ceremonies. And that bliss is replaced by this contentment and fulfillment that results after you've made a commitment to the thing where you've become a beneficial presence. So the act of making that commitment brings the long-term joy, which is long-term commitment and fulfillment out of an act of service with your life. It's the craziest thing, but that's what works. So don't let what's trending, you know, the thing is, I used to spend, when I was younger, I had some commercial success, and I sold a company for just under $90 million. And I was constantly watching my money, and I would watch like financial news networks, and I would be trying to watch the news and see the trends and capitalize on them from an investment standpoint. And that was really a waste of time for me, because I was just involved in betting on what I saw happening, instead of investing my time And when I went through my plant medicine ceremony, I all of a sudden got this complete directive from God to start this place, and that this would be the hardest thing I ever did, and it would be the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. And I get a chance to see these people leave here every Saturday and Sunday, and they're brand new. And I get a chance to talk to them 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, 7 years later, and see how this has changed their life. And then to see the waves that they've made as a beneficial presence in the planet. It's the most gorgeous thing in the world. The most gorgeous thing in the world. I get that. And each of the people who are here that had this happen and picked a new vocation, a new way to become a beneficial presence, whether that's playing guitar, whether that's drawing, whether that's owning a restaurant, whether that's owning an Airbnb, whatever they're doing by adding service to humanity in a beautiful, new, and different way, they're becoming that, and it changes everything. So my message to you today is, do not be talked out of this thing. Don't sell your dream to your parents, to your kids, to your aunt, to your uncle, to pop culture. Do not sell it. Keep it for yourself and make this the thing so that you live in joy. All right, great. It was wonderful talking to you. And please come to Rhythmia. Have this happen to you. We are a group of people that is now going on 15,000 people strong, who are actively in the world trying to become beneficial presence in our community, in our churches, our neighborhoods, our businesses. Come in, get involved, our families, come in, get involved in this, and join us in this beautiful time that's occurring on the planet called The Shift. Come on and join us and be a part of it. I look forward to talking to you next week. See you then.